Hey guys, how's it going? I am the Film Attackers, and today I'll be doing a tier list of every single MCU movie as I just got done watching all of them. Literally just getting done watching Spider-Man Far From Home not even 30 minutes ago. So today I'm gonna be doing a tier list of all of them, showing you guys where I would place them since I've been doing my reviews on Stardust. Now keep in mind that this is my opinion. Please do not hate me if I put your favorite MCU movie low on the list or if I put your most hated one high on the list. This is all opinionated. I very much like to hear you guys' opinions in the comments down below. Also, the reason why I'm doing this on my phone is because mainly my laptop is broken. It's getting repaired by a friend of mine who lives next door to me. So yeah, I'm doing this on my smartphone because I wanted to do this right now. So starting off this list, to me, starting off this list, I'm doing it in order from the wherever order is shown down below is Doctor Strange, and unpopular opinion, I'm putting this in S tier. This was a awesome movie. I did not expect it to be as good as it was, but it fucking was. The biggest pro I could say about this movie, and this is the major one, is Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Stephen Strange. He is phenomenal. He portrays the character perfectly. And I know people probably put this in A tier, but to me, it's an S tier MCU movie because I cannot find anything wrong with it. Maybe the pacing, but I can forget the pacing because the movie is gorgeous. The movie is funny. It has an amazing story to it. Has beautiful locations with great casting in it. Like I said, Benedict Cumberbatch just embodies Doctor Strange. He is Doctor Strange to me now, just like how Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange to me. I love Doctor Strange, and I'll probably go back to rewatch this over and over again. Next up is Avengers Endgame, and that goes in S tier as well. I went to theaters to see Avengers Endgame with a friend of mine, and it was such an emotional ride. Um, just a conclusion to all these fucking movies, and it was a really good conclusion. This is the best way they could have concluded this saga, and it had so much emotions from happiness to sadness to anger. I mean, I felt all the emotions watching this movie, and of course, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to spoil this for anyone who has not watched the Marvel movies yet who are wanting to watch them. All I'll say is that this is my favorite Avengers movie. This is such a fucking good Avengers movie. It's such a great MCU movie. While not my favorite MCU movie, it is my favorite Avengers movie. Coming up next is Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm putting that in A tier. Um, this was a big shocker for me when it came out. When I heard they were doing a movie called Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be This is where Marvel fucks up. This is gonna be their first flop. But boy, did they fucking prove me wrong. And they continue to prove me wrong. Again, with Doctor Strange, I thought that was gonna be bad. Turned out to be phenomenal. And this came out, and I thought this was gonna be complete garbage. Completely blown away. They again with the perfect casting of everyone. Vin Diesel as Groot, Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, Dave Bautista as Drax, and of course, to me, the most perfect casting is Chris Pratt as Star Lord. He fits that role perfectly. He's the one to me who brings most of the humor to the movie. Um, Everything about this movie to me is great. It's fun. Although I will say the thing that holds this movie back for me in S tier is the villain. I did not care for the villain too much. I thought that he was kind of weakish, but other than that, everything else in the movie is great, from the acting to the cinematography to the humor to the writing to everything. To me, fit and worked so well. James Gunn really surprised everyone with this movie. Coming up next is Thor Ragnarok, and I'm putting this in S tier. This, if you guys want to know what my favorite MCU movie is, Thor Ragnarok is my favorite MCU movie. It really brought the Thor movies back, because the first two Thor movies were not as good as they could have been. But Ragnarok said, "Listen, we can make Marcel, listen, we can make a good Thor movie. We'll get Taika Waititi, a guy behind Jojo Rabbit, and we'll bring him in to do a Marvel movie. A very like, if you read the interviews, and you know this movie was 80% improv, it's fucking crazy. To know that this movie was 80% improv from the actors and all that. It was, and what shows that, Taika Waititi knows what, he's doing behind the camera. And he just let the actors have fun with it. And that's what happened, and they made a very fun and colorful and, clever fucking MCU movie. And to me, the villains in this movie are great. I love Hela. Hela's awesome. And while I cannot remember the villain's name of Jeff Goldblum's character, Jeff Goldblum is just Jeff Goldblum, and he is fucking great in this movie. He is funny, and I love him as a villain. I love everything about Thor Ragnarok. To me, it is my and to me personally, it's my favorite MCU movie. I understand if you guys don't care for it, but to me, it is my favorite. Coming up next is Avengers Infinity War. I'm putting that one in the S tier as well with Endgame. Again, I saw this one in theaters. I saw all these in theaters. Every single MCU movie I watched in theaters, and most of them I actually have different opinions. They're going back to rewatch them, but this is not one of them. Avengers Infinity War felt the same as it did when I went to see it in theaters. Very powerful, very fun to watch, emotional at the end. It was just a great Avengers movie. It's my second favorite. Just Thanos. Man, Thanos is the best MCU villain as well. He is so damn good in this movie. Um, what makes this movie stand out is seeing all the heroes on in the same movie. Seeing Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark team up with Doctor Strange, seeing Thor team up with Groot and Rocket Raccoon, you know, all of that is just fucking awesome. And seeing fucking Tony Stark meeting Star Lord was fucking great. And of course, the third act is what really makes this movie amazing as well. Just like with Endgame, the third act is fucking amazing. The whole movie is amazing. I love Infinity War. Next up is the first Iron Man, and I'm putting that in the A tier. I love the first Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark is fucking incredible. He is Tony Stark. He is incredible. No, every time now that I look at Robert Downey Jr., I'm like, hey, it's Tony Stark. Even though I've seen him in movies before Iron Man, he's now Tony Stark to me because he pulled off that character so fucking well. He is Tony Stark. And believe it or not, the movie still holds up to this day. I love the CGI. I love the fight scenes. I love just how badass the movie is. And Jon Favreau, the guy who directed this, really pulled it off for this movie. This movie is fun to watch. It still holds up to this fucking day. The only thing that I don't like, and again, what holds this back for me in S tier is the same thing that held Guardians of the Galaxy back. I did not like the villain. I thought the villain was bland and boring. He really wasn't anything too special, but I still love the first Iron Man. I love it absolutely to death. It is one of the MCU's best. Next up is Avengers Age of Ultron, and I'm putting this in B tier. I know a lot of people put this in the lower tiers, but to me, I think Avengers Age of Ultron, while being the weakest Avengers film, yes, it's still a fun movie to watch. Ultron is actually a really good villain to me. I like how funny he is. I like how, dick-headed he can be because he's basically Tony Stark. Um, it's just a fun movie to watch. While there are things I don't like about the movie, which to do that I have to go into spoilers. I'm trying to keep this very spoiler free. The movie is still very enjoyable. I just think the story is weak, and I do think they rushed Ultron's introduction a lot. They really rushed it. And then there are some other things, like I said, spoilers that I don't want to get into. But it's still a fun Avengers movie while not being the best Avengers movie. Next up is Iron Man 3, and I'm putting this in B tier. Shane Black really did a good job with Iron Man 3. He made it different. While there are things in this movie that fans don't like, I honestly think that it is the second best Iron Man movie. This is basically a Tony Stark movie. It's not Iron Man, it's Tony Stark. You get to see more of Tony Stark, him dealing with the events after the first Avengers. See how it messed him up. And while I do agree with people that the twist at the end was not fucking good at all, I still do think the villain, like the first two parts of the movie, like the first like 2/3 of the movie is fucking great, and then a twist happened, and it was just like, meh. This is why it's in B tier. But if the movie, the third act, was more like the first and second act, this would have been an A tier movie. But what they did with a certain character and the twist was it really held the movie back a lot. But the villain is still really good in this movie. Robert Downey Jr., of course, is awesome in the movie. Just everything in this movie to me worked except for the third act. Coming up next is Captain Marvel, and this is going to be our first C tier movie. Um, there was a lot of hype and a lot of hate for this movie, and while I don't hate this movie as much as everyone else does, I do think this is a very bland and boring, middle of the road MCU movie. Not a lot going for it. It's just very generic. And remember how I said that Marvel keeps making good casting calls? This is not one of them. This is the one movie where I will um this is the first out of the two movies I will say that no, they didn't make a good casting call. Brie Larson, I do not care for her as Captain Marvel. I have to go back to rewatch this movie. I'm like, someone else better could have been casted. I do not think she fits the role. Her acting was not as good as it could have been in this movie. But really, what makes this movie like stay away from the D tier is this awesome acting from Samuel L. Jackson, all the other cast members, the CGI, the fight scenes, all of that, and the okay story in the movie. The movie has an okay story. That it makes it very middle of the road because there's a lot of wrong with this movie, but there's some things that it really does get right. So that's why it's in C tier. Next up is Iron Man 2, and this is a hard one. I'm thinking about to put this in C tier. This is the weakest out of the Iron Man trilogy. This movie was very bland, which was shocking. Which, if you know behind the scenes, Jon Favreau wanted 3 years to film it, and well, wanted 3 years to put the movie together, and Disney said no, you got to do it in two. So the movie was rushed. The villain Whiplash was not good at all. I do not like Whiplash as an MCU villain. And the effects can be wonky a bit, but what really saves this movie from being in D tier is, first off, the fucking soundtrack done by AC/DC was really fucking cool. Um, Most of the CGI, while some of it being terrible, most of it is really good. And of course, the actors, them replacing Terrence Howard with Don Cheadle, great move. I did not care for Terrence Howard in the first Iron Man, but I do think Don Cheadle was a really good option to pick. Oh, good, really good pick from Marvel. Um, it was just really, it was just a bland sequel to an amazing first movie, which is why it's in C tier. Next up is the Incredible Hulk, and I'm putting that in D tier. I do not like the Hulk. First off, I do not like Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. I do not respect Edward Norton as a person in real life, as he does like to command people around on set. He does act like he wants to be the director. Even he likes to boss the director around because he thinks he has all this power. If you guys don't know the story about why he was replaced, he actually went to Marvel to demand more control over some of the characters in the MCU, and they told him no, and he left. That's why they brought in Mark Ruffalo. And to me, even without him being a dickhead like in real life, I just do not care for his portrayal of Bruce Banner. I think Mark Ruffalo does it a lot better than what Edward Norton did. The CGI ranges from good to bad. The fight scenes were kind of bland to me. Carnage was not really well done, and the story was just very forgettable. This is a movie to me that you can pluck out the MCU and nothing would feel different at all. It brings nothing to it. That's why I do not care for the Hulk movie. Coming up next is Spider-Man Far From Home, and that's going in A tier. Spider-Man Far From Home was amazing. I love this movie. It's a great Spider-Man flick. Um, and Tom Holland, of course, knocks it out of the park as Peter Parker. Everyone in this movie, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, oh my god, he is so damn good. He is great. He is phenomenal. I love him as this character. He's great. Very villainous, very much of a dickhead at times, but that's what really makes a good villain. What really holds this movie back there for being S tier is most, like half of the CGI can be a little bit wonky. Not by much, just a little bit wonky. But the other half of it is really fucking good. And the story to me is not as good as Homecoming's. I will say that. I think Homecoming had a better story than Far From Home. But Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal saved this fucking movie from being in B tier. This movie is fucking fun to watch. Next up is Homecoming, and I think I'm also going to put Homecoming in A tier. This movie to me was really, really well done for Marvel. First off, I want to talk about the villain Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. Very fucking great villain. He nailed it. He is great as the Vulture. You can see why he's doing the things that he's doing. He's doing it for his family because the government's taking the jobs away from him because Tony Stark. So he is taking things to his own hands. While I do think he can be really villainous at times. He is very sympathetic at times, especially in the end credit scene where he does. Well, I'm not going to spoil it, but you'll see if you've seen. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie where he's in prison. Scene where he's in prison. You know what end credit scene I'm talking about, where he actually protects someone, which was cool. Again, Tom Holland. This is a great introduction movie for Spider-Man. Well done. Marvel knocked it out the park with it. Marvel and Sony both did. This movie also has some issues with CGI, but they're not as noticeable as like the one in Far From Home. The story, while still being kind of weak, is a little bit better than what Far From Home was. So it suffers the same problems that Far From Home does, but it does not mean it's a bad Spider-Man movie. It's a fantastic Spider-Man movie that I will always go back to rewatch. Same thing with Far From Home. Next up is Captain America Winter Soldier, and this is going in the S tier. Winter Soldier is one of the best MCU movies. No one can deny that. No one can sit there and say it's not. It is phenomenally done. Probably this is the second best Captain America movie. With a fantastic fucking story, with a fantastic villain, with fantastic characters all around. It's just a really fucking well done movie, and I always enjoy going back to rewatch it. Next up is Captain America Civil War, and that's also going in the S tier. Again, this is my favorite Captain America movie, and one of my favorite the MCU movies. Seeing Captain America fight Iron Man was fucking awesome. Seeing his team go up against Cap's team was really well done. And what I love about this movie is it's not one-sided. You can see each side of the coin. You can see why Captain America is doing what he's doing, but you can also see why Iron Man is doing what he's doing. And they don't make either side wrong. You see both sides of the spectrum here. And, I love that about this movie. And that's why it's going in S tier. I absolutely love Civil War. Up next is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I'm putting this in A tier. I know people put this out lower, but here's the reason why I'm doing it. I was talking to Altex TV last night, one of my friends, and we were talking about our rankings of the MCU movies, and I understand why he doesn't like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but when he said, this is basically a Star-Lord movie, I do agree. This is a Star-Lord movie. This is a movie mostly about him. But that's why I like it. James Gunn wanted to do something different for the sequel. Didn't want it to feel samey. So he just wanted to delve more into Star-Lord for everyone to get to know him more. And I actually like that. Actually seeing, his father in the movie was really cool. Him being the villain was really well done. I actually think Ego was a great villain. I think Kurt Russell did an amazing job portraying that villain. And I do love the fact that it's different. I do love the fact that it's more darker, more grim. There's a lot of fucked up shit that happens in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and that's why I love it. It's such a different feel than what the first one was. And I think James Gunn pulled it off perfectly. I do think this was a great sequel to the first Guardians, but to me, what held this movie back from being S tier is the fact that it has way too many jokes for its own good. While the first movie did have jokes, it didn't throw them at you left and right like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 did. That's really the only problem. I do think 80% of the jokes work in Volume 2, but I do think the villain was good, and I do love the fact that it's a very different feel. So up next is Ant-Man, and I'm putting Ant-Man. I can. Oh, I was gonna put it in A tier. When I first heard they were doing an Ant-Man movie, I'm like, well, this is gonna be another. This is gonna be a fuck up for MCU. But then I saw on the writing credits Edgar Wright. I'm like, okay, this could be good, but I still have less, like, not that much hope for it. When I went to go see Ant-Man in theaters, I was completely blown away by how fucking fun it was to watch. This is a fun MCU movie. It's one of the funniest MCU movies. To me, it's the second funniest, right behind Thor Ragnarok. It has such great characters, great casting for Ant-Man. You know, Paul Rudd was a great casting choice for it. Even though he is basically playing Paul Rudd, he is still really good as Ant-Man. I still love him. I love the fact this movie has very heartwarming moments with Scott Lang's daughter. Um, I just love Ant-Man. It worked so well when it shouldn't have. It's a movie literally about a guy that controls ants that can shrink and grow. And somehow they made it into one of the best MCU movies ever to me. I love Ant-Man. And it's such a blast to go back to rewatch Ant-Man over and over again because it's just such a fun movie to rewatch. Coming up next is Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I'm putting that one in B tier. They really changed a lot for Ant-Man and the Wasp, but not in a good way to me. While the movie's still fun to watch, I do think the writing's still good. The directing from it's the same guy from the first movie. His direction is still really good. The acting is still phenomenal. What really ruined the taste in my mouth for this movie was the fact that they focused more on the Wasp than Ant-Man. And not only that, but they took Skyling's character and made him really dumb. Like, like in the first Ant-Man, he was a really smart guy. He knew what he was doing. You know, he was actually kind of smart. But what it did for Ant-Man and Wasp was that they just transformed him into this dumb guy, and it just doesn't feel right to me. But them returning Mike Pena was fucking funny. He was great in the movie. Um, there's a lot of good jokes in the movie, but to me, the villain was not well utilized. I wish they would have done more with the villain of the movie. And I do think that the fact that they did dumb down Scott Lang's character is really what makes this movie go to like B tier. Next up is Black Panther, and I'm putting this in B tier. Now, I know a lot of people like Black Panther, and I'm sorry if I put it really, like, probably some people really low on this list, but here's the thing. When I went to see Black Panther first in theaters, it was during all the hype, and I was like, oh, this is the best movie ever made. This is the best superhero movie ever made. When I went to watch it, I was like, it's good, but it's not as good as everyone's making out to be. Now, going back to rewatching now, I like it a little bit more than what I did in theaters. There are still major problems I have with the movie. The major one being the CGI. Holy shit, it's not that good. It's literally not. It really brings me out the movie when I see the CGI for Black Panther. Not only that, I do think the story is kind of weak, but it's not weak. It's just sort of weak. It has an okay story. But really what makes this movie great, and I noticed rewatching this movie, is the characters, and the villain Killmonger was so fucking good. And the locations were so beautiful in this movie. It was gorgeous to look at. It's a gorgeous movie to look at from a cinematography standpoint. Like, for the CGI department, like 70% of the CGI is not good. But the 30% that look really good are really good. But that's really why the movie's in the B tier. I still do enjoy watching it. I enjoy it a little bit more than what I did the first time watching it, but to me it's not A or S tier. Next is Captain America First Avenger, and I'm putting this in B tier. I do think that this movie um, is a good origin story for Captain America, but there are major issues I'm going to go into right now. First off, I really wish they would have done more with World War II. This is a personal thing. It feels like they just brushed by World War II, with the World War II battles with Captain America. I really wanted to see in an origin story Captain America as Captain America in the World War II battles, not a montage. The other thing's the villain. I love Red Skull, but they barely use him. He's barely in the movie, and that's what makes me mad. He's such a good villain, played by a fantastic actor, and he was barely used in the movie. But the times that he was used, he was really fucking good. But the story's great. The acting's phenomenal. The CGI is fantastic, and I still do think that while this is the weakest of the Captain America trilogy, it's still a really good origin story for Captain America. Coming up next is the first Thor. I'm putting this in C tier. Um, this is basically Dutch angle the movie. A lot of Dutch angles in this movie. Not only that, but the movie feels off. Um, After watching The Incredible Hulk, while this is better than The Incredible Hulk, um, it's not. It's only slightly better. It makes it in C tier because this is a very, again, middle of the road movie for the MCU. It has good elements. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, great casting choice by Paramount and Marvel. Um, Anthony Hopkins as Odin, really fucking good. I can't remember the actors. I think it's Tom Hiddleston who plays Loki. He's really fucking good as Loki. But the movie just feels boring. The movie is very boring to me. Not a lot happens for me. When they get to Earth, things do get slightly better with the humor. There is some really okay humorous stuff in this movie, but the thing that really holds this movie up for me is the CGI and the decent story in it. And of course, Chris Hemsworth's Thor was really fucking good. But it's just some of the characters are not as good. They do get kind of annoying at times. It's just a very middle of the road MCU movie to me. Next up is Thor: The Dark World, and this is going in D tier. I absolutely do not like Thor: The Dark World. There's only a few things I like about it, and I can count them on my hand. Literally my first few fingers, honestly. There's Chris Hemsworth Thor, still good. Tom Hiddleston as Loki, still good. Less Dutch angles, great. And there's okay humor scenes, like Loki turning into Captain America. That was pretty funny. But other than that, it was just a weak villain, weak story, not as good CGI as there was in the first movie. Just all around, this was a very weak sequel, just like Iron Man 2, but I do think Iron Man 2 is slightly better than Thor: The Dark World. And the last movie is Avengers, the first one. I'm putting this in A tier. Um, I do think the first Avengers is a fantastic movie. Still holds up to this day. I watched this movie when it first came out in theaters, and it was a blast to watch. A blast. Um, I do feel like they could have done more to, you know, I don't know. It's just some of the CGI to me was not as good as it could have been. It was like 20% of CGI was bad. Like, not, it wasn't bad. It was like decent. But then the other, like 80% was fucking great. Um, Loki as the main villain in this movie, phenomenal. I love Loki. Um, Seeing all the Avengers together was really cool. And the only reason why this makes it A tier is because I do not think it's on the same level as those S tier movies. Those S tier movies to me are like fucking masterpieces to me. A tier movies, while still amazing, they have flaws. And to me, the flaws of Avengers, honestly, is I do feel like they didn't really establish them meeting more. I really wish they would have done more with that. But that's just me. I still love the first Avengers movie, and I will still watch it over and over again. So this is basically my tiers. You got S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know probably get a lot of hate for some of the placements of the movies, but I hope you guys understand this is very much opinions, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching me rank the movies in the tiers. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys next time.